Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the April 24, 2025 Planning Board meeting. We're happy to have you with us tonight. Ms. Washington, can we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Mr. Barhu, Mr. McLean.
Here.
Mr. Robinson, Mr. Servance, Mr. Weatherholtz, Ms. Washington. You have a quorum.
Thank you, madam. We'll move smartly on to item number 3, approval of the minutes for the March 27th Planning Board meeting. Could I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, before you motion,
Yes.
Correction.
Correction. Well, we're revising, sir.
Page 9 of 155. Item F, staff presentation. In my comment, it says, Mr. Robinson had a problem with the reduction in parking and the expansion of the building. I don't have a problem with it. I had some concerns with the reduction in the parking and the expansion of the building. Not a problem.
Perhaps
So
the
you
word
got-
concern
Yes,
as opposed
sir.
to problem would
Yes,
be
that would
more
be more
appropriate, what
appropriate.
you're saying.
Yes, I appreciate that change.
All right. Well, I think we could do that. We're reasonable people here.
I thought I was like, whoa.
Could I ask, sir, for a motion with that revision
Yes, sir.
included? All
I
right.
hereby move that we approve the
Minutes of the
minutes
March
of the-
27th meeting?
for March 17th.
And do we have a second? Perfect. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Any citizens who'd like to address the board concerning items on the agenda, we ask that you fill out the green comment card. And when you come to the lectern, please state your name and address for the record. And want to remind you that there's a time limit of 3 minutes or less. If you can make your point in that period of time, we would be appreciative of that if you can. Moving on to item 4A. Madam Secretary, please.
Certainly. Item 4A. First Amendment to Waypointe Planned Development General, PDG, DEV 2024-60, is that 605? 607, quasi-judicial hearing.
Thank you very much. May we hear from staff on this, please? Hey.
Good evening, Dana Lee Pettick, Senior Planner. This item is a request to amend the Waypointe Plan Development to add flexibility in the residential use types, add boat and recreational vehicle storage uses, and revise the development standards. The property is located southwest of the Interstate 4 and Interstate 95 interchange. The future land use on the property is mixed use. The zoning is the Waypointe PD, which will remain. And this is the aerial of the property, which shows that it is currently vacant. So the property was originally rezoned to planned development in 2019 for a mixed-use development, which with residential, commercial, institutional, and light industrial uses. The first several phases of residential development are currently under review for final plat. And now the applicant is requesting this first amendment to add flexibility in the residential use types, add boat and RV storage uses, and revise the development standards. And these are the changes proposed to the PD. So first, like I said, the amendment will add flexibility in the types of residential uses. So this means that the residential uses allowed in the areas identified for such uses in the PD plan can be changed so long as the total number of residential units within the PD does not exceed the maximum units specified, and the change is consistent with the trip equivalency matrix being added to the PD with this amendment as well. So the PD plan here has specific areas for residential uses such as townhomes or apartments, and they would like the ability to change those to other residential uses should they desire to. And this is the trip equivalency matrix, which is a conversion matrix to allow one type of permitted use to be exchanged for another type of permitted use. And this one is based on the traffic rates generated for each use to make sure that the intensity of the development does not change were they to change any of the uses for other ones permitted within the PD. So the amendment proposes to revise the entitlements, but not to increase the density or intensity, like I said. So they're just rearranging how it's stated in the PD, as you can see here in this table. They are also proposing to add a requirement for screening between the non-residential uses, specifically the outdoor storage uses, abutting residential uses. And the screening will be required to follow this exhibit, which is an 8-foot tall berm and fence within the landscape buffer in between those uses. And then they're also revising the permitted uses, like I said previously, to include the addition of storage for boats and RVs, both indoor and outdoor, and to remove the restriction for outdoor storage as only an accessory to a self-storage facility. They would like to have it be standalone. The existing PD does permit self-storage uses already and other industrial uses. This amendment includes one waiver request for the property. The applicant has requested the development's project logo, which you can see here on this illustration, be exempt from the maximum copy area calculation required of the Land Development Code. So typically a logo would be counted towards signage, part of their copy area. So if they wanted to have a specific end user advertise on the sign, they would have to shrink it down to fit the logo in. So they would like the ability to have the logo without having to reduce the other signage. The entrance sign is what's shown here. It's not going to be this big tower everywhere. It's just going to be the logo. So with that, staff recommends the planning board forward the First Amendment to the Waypointe Planned Development Agreement to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval. Majority vote by the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval to the City Commission. The item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by City Commission for first reading on June 4th and second reading on June 18th. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Let me just ask a quick question on this waiver logo business.
Yes.
What we're talking about here is no matter how many signs that end up being put on, we're allowing a logo to go on potentially each and every one of them, in addition to what we would typically allow. Instead of it being included within it, it's in addition to. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. And it's just the logo. It's not an increase in the amount of signs allowed. It's just allowing them to put this logo on every sign that's already permitted.
Okay, thank you.
How many signs are they going to put up?
It is a very large development, and each specific phase of development is allowed a certain amount of signs. So like each residential subdivision can have a certain amount, the commercial can have a certain amount. So I can't tell you. They do have this sign program, which is just their entrance signs, which is not the same as like each individual property's signs. So I don't have the number.
Okay.
So the applicant can perhaps address that? Okay, perfect. Any other questions for staff?
No, I have for the
applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, speaking of the applicant, come on up and answer all our questions, please. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Okay. Good evening, Joey Posey, 420 South Nova, attorney for the applicant. I'll get to the question in 1 second, but maybe just to speak to some of the points staff had made.
Please.
And I'll walk through them in order. In terms of the flexibility, really what we're running up into is how the code reads. It defines in many respects how multifamily is calculated, that it can include a townhome, and it's a function of how you subdivide. So we're getting caught in a little bit of a catch-22 with certain builders that want to utilize a non-subdivided version of a townhome, and that we're precluded to doing it because of how the PDs reads in terms of how we define the uses. So to solve that problem, we've said, okay, well, we want to add more townhomes, and but we can create that bucket of units that we were already entitled to under the existing PD. That solves the problem. And it also gives us the flexibility to utilize some of the multifamily that the apartment style that in the rear of the property near the lake that we wanted to do lakefront townhomes, that gives us the flexibility to move forward with that phase two. So at the end of the day, if structuring it this way actually results in a net density loss, even though the buckets aren't changing, and it made it very easy from a traffic calculation and all of the metrics that we just utilized in the PD. But that's the thought process of why we had to do it. The development criteria changes also had to be to reflect that. So the only modification you see in the multifamily criteria is for the 1 and 2 stories, because it's functionally a townhome. The signage itself, there's 4 entrances that have already been gone through plating process. There's 4 entrances proposed. Each entrance on each side is to have a miniature version of that tower, but the code again says that that's copy area. And that's not the intent. It's a little unique in that way that you don't get that in a lot of a lot of developments where you put the monument sign out there and you can utilize the copy area as you please, as long as it's outside of the the 4 corners of the plating. But now that we've decided to do a logo with a little tower next to the monument, we're having to throw that into the bucket of how you calculate copy area. So it's the 4 entrances we're speaking to really brand it and make it a nice development and make sure that this is Waypointe when you come in, and at all the entrances that would be along the project. Other than that, I think we touched on the rest of it. Oh, no, one more. The outdoor storage, like was mentioned, is already a permitted use. It just has to be done in conjunction with mini storage. You're getting a lot of developers coming in and they're asking to separate these from an ownership aspect. And again, if it's accessory, we can't have one without the other the way the current project reads. So to add a little bit more of an assurance that it just, you get a nice version of an outdoor storage facility or a mini storage facility, we said, okay, well, let's add additional buffering along those residential areas that would adjoin the commercial area. So, there's a heightened standard now that wasn't already in the PD. Right. So that was how we got to that point, even though we are entitled by right to both those uses. Other than that, I have the engineer, I have the traffic engineer. It's a pretty straightforward request, but if there's anything we can do or clarify, we're happy to. Or if, out of curiosity, we'll answer any questions you got. So,
Mr. Robinson?
Yes. How many signs are you putting up?
It's 4 entrances, so it's a total of, and let me clarify with the engineer.
It's 2 entrances, but there's 2 signs on either side.
I apologize. 2 entrances, 2 signs on both sides. So for a total of 4,
Okay,
which would be entitled by code.
I understand. And what is the height?
The height I don't have off the top of my head. I want to say it's 6 feet.
I'm getting told by the engineer 6 feet.
Oh, okay. My concern is about these signs all over the place and the height. It looks like an institution. It looks more like I don't want to say a prison, but it doesn't look like a subdevelopment or somewhere somebody lives. It looks like it's it's like a prison. I don't, the concept that you have with the towers going up, it looks like a prison with the towers around it to keep people. That's just my opinion of it in terms of how it presents when I look at it. And then you were saying that you want to put these logos on, and I assume that when you start building, you're going to be putting more of these towers.
No, the intent is to have them at the entrances, and maybe it's just the elevation we pulled, but that is the elevation from the existing PD.
Okay.
Just to give an example of the logo, it's a very nice monument. It's
Monument.
and the monumentation of it. Again, it's a function if I had a tree out there or whatever object it is. We're getting caught by the code just on the logoing. And it's, again, the branding is specific to the Waypointe development. I would disagree with you and think.
I understand.
I understand.
It goes up, and that's what I would put.
Right. And I think that if you look at it, that's a 50-foot off of the interstate monument, but it's just illustrating the type of logo that we're talking about. It's not that size.
Well, just for an example, we're talking 4 signs 6 feet high. Let's assume
Exactly.
that's what we're talking about. If they were 6 feet wide, we're talking 36 square feet times 444 square feet. I'm just using it as an example. I'm just saying to give Mr. Robinson maybe a sense of proportion. We're compared to some other signage discussions we've had on this board. We're not talking substantial.
Exactly, and the alternative is just to do a general monument without logo, and you would be in the same predicament where it would just be the sign and without the logo. The opportunity here is to we can do a small monumentation with a logo, really dress it up, try to make a nice entrance, and without really trying to capture more signage area. We're just trying to make sure that the branding of the community is correct. That's the whole goal here. It's not to advertise, one business over another. It's just simply to say this is the Waypointe development. That's all it is.
But you're gonna have the Waypointe name spelled out on the bottom, right?
And I would have to waste my signage to do that.
So you don't,
I'm not talking about, we're talking about the logos,
you want to enhance the brand.
Right, but it's just the logo we're speaking to, not the lettering of the copy area that would describe, again, if it happens to be Waypointe, if it happens to be such and such business.
So in addition to the copy area, which is Waypointe, you want to put the logo on the top.
Correct. The logo is what we're speaking to.
Yeah, that's what you're speaking to.
Well,
what I'm saying to you, I'm not trying to be rude or anything. What I'm saying to you, from my perspective, you're asking us to give you permission to add the logo on top of the monument sign.
Correct.
Along with your Waypointe. And I'm trying to figure out what's the purpose, or how does that enhance,
It's simply just, well, again, it's aesthetic. The logo is an aesthetic representation of the development. That is a much nicer looking entrance feature than just simply having a static Waypointe or whatever other business is coming in, which I would imagine from a community perspective, you would want to dress up the entrances to try to capture those type of things.
Then I would, from an aesthetic point of view, I would put it next to your copy area then. That's where people's going to see your brand.
Yeah, and it would make for a very small sign, and we're trying to work within the confines of the code too, because again, there's no waiver being requested outside of just this logo.
And let's keep in mind as well, this is a substantially sized development. We're talking
Yes, exactly.
415 acres. So when you're spreading these over that amount of land, not any one of them becomes substantial,
Exactly.
at least in my view.
One of my concerns is that once we give the go-ahead on this particular waiver, then it becomes the norm. Then other developers come in and says, wait a minute, we did it to somebody else, why can't I have it? And before long, it becomes normal for everybody to come in and ask a waiver. Just like we were talking the other day about a waiver on a project, and it was brought up by Mr. Bob out here, that Tanja Mall and you remember last month Tanja Mall wanted to have an exemption to have it every day, or unlimited, right? And the poker club over on Williamson, we gave it to them, right? So now it became okay for everybody to come in next time and says, well, we started something here, right? So it becomes a normal request. And that's my concern.
And I understand the whole Me Too concept.
Right.
But it's up to this board and others like it to look at the circumstances and look at it on a case-by-case basis and see not necessarily what's similar, but does this make sense for what they're asking? We can always say no, regardless of what has happened in the past. Now, the applicant can come and say, me too, but we can say, well, not so much, and here's our reasons.
And maybe just to give maybe a little bit of a caveat to this, I see this more as an embellishment to the monument itself rather than actual signage. It's because how the code reads that it's treating it as copy area. When I put a star with 2 letters on it, I don't know that's Waypointe unless I have brand identity that it's Waypointe. If I go to the Tanger sign and I see Tanger, well, I know that's Tanger because it says Tanger.
As opposed to a big T.
Right, and I understand your point, but I'm just, I don't think this opens a door when you're talking in terms of the branding of the monument signage element. I think that's distinct. It just happens to be described in the code as copy area.
Any other questions for Mr. Posey?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're quite welcome, sir. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. Okay, no, we don't have any speakers on this item, so I would ask for a motion for agenda item 4A, please.
I'll make a motion for the First Amendment of Waypointe Planned Development General, BEV 2024-607.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4B. Madam Secretary, please.
Certainly. Second Amendment to shops at Williamson Crossing, Valvoline, DEV 2024-772, quasi-judicial hearing.
Very good, thank you. Luke, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Planning Board.
Please.
My name is Luke Rinkus, and I'm presenting the Second Amendment to Williamson Crossing PD. Let's see. Project request. This request is the Second Amendment to the Williamson Crossing Planned Development Agreement to allow for vehicle repair and servicing as a permitted use. The revisions to the PD agreement include the following modifications and additions. Firstly, allow for vehicle repair and servicing as a permitted use in the PD, limited solely to Parcel 1, Lot 3. Add additional exhibits for signage, architectural plans, boundary survey, and landscape plans for Parcel 1, Lot 3. Add a provision for the architecture for Parcel 1, Lot 3 to be consistent with the proposed architectural exhibit. You can see the site location there on LPGA in Williamson. Future land use is mixed use. The zoning is Planned Development General. And the current conditions, it is vacant. The project history: on November 15th, 2017, Williamson Crossing Plan Development was approved, and then it was amended and restated on May 16th, 2019. On August 23rd, 2021, the first minor modification was adopted, updating the signage plan. On July 21st, 2022, First Amendment was adopted, allowing the use of veterinary hospital or clinic on lots 3, 6, and 7. And on February 19th, 2025, the second minor modification was adopted, allowing lots 6 and 7 to have outdoor display and storage. The Second Amendment proposes to add vehicle repair and servicing as a use solely for Parcel 1, Lot 3. Add an exhibit for signage provisions. Revise the signage plan for Parcel 1, Lot 3. Add an exhibit for architectural plans on Parcel 1, Lot 3. Add an exhibit for the boundary survey for Parcel 1, Lot 3. And add an exhibit for the landscape plan for Parcel 1, Lot 3. This does have a modification to the LDC. The amendment requests a waiver to the LDC Section 6.12.4BI and 6.12.4BIII regarding architectural features on the outside walls. This waiver would allow the glass garage doors shown in the applicant's plan to be permitted while preserving the aesthetic intent. And you can see right here those architectural plans. Staff finds the requested rezone meets the criteria in sections 3.4D3 and 4.8B Land Development Code. Staff recommends the Planning Board move forward the Second Amendment to the Williamson Crossing Plan Development Agreement to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval. A majority vote by the Planning Board members present and voting is required to move forward a recommendation to the City Commission. The item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by the City Commission for first reading on June 4th, 2025, and for second reading on June 18th, 2025.
Very good. Luke, we're talking about the waiver here. These glass windows, the mobile glass windows, that's pretty typical of what you're going to see at a oil change facility, am I right?
That's correct.
Okay, so nothing unusual.
Nothing
as far as
unusual
that.
for a.
If we're going to go this route, they need to have that done.
That is correct.
Very good. Any other questions for staff, please? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir. Seeing none, could we hear from the applicant, please? And I believe the applicant's making his way up to do just that. Hey, Parker.
Parker Mynchenberg, 1729 Ridgewood Avenue. Thank you for that presentation. This is in a PD my office designed, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 years ago now. There's a racetrack gas station next door to it. And this is going to provide basically oil change for a lot of the apartments that are in the area, so they're not going to have to drive as far to do it. And the elevation is up, so the waiver has to do, kind of reminded me of the Tesla dealership, except they had a lot more of them. But that's the elevation that'll be fronting LPGA, and we do have a 50-foot STO buffer, so a lot of 6-inch caliper trees and stuff going to be blocking it. And maybe I can answer some questions if there are any.
Any questions for Parker?
I think, first of all, the structure itself kind of reminds me of a fire station.
Jim Morris said the same thing when he saw it.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
A little unusual.
Yeah, it looks good though.
I mean, I see no problem with it as long as they don't start storing cars or trucks.
Speaking to the mic, please.
I'm sorry. As long as they don't start storing trucks and vehicles,
I don't think that's permitted here, and from what I understand, it's a fairly low volume traffic generator. They maybe do 40 or 50 oil changes a day.
I see no problem with it.
Yeah, that's to say, get them in, get them out. That's how the approach would be. Anything else? Parker, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Don't have any speakers on this item as well, so I would ask for a motion on item 4B, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you, are we doing the Second Amendment, Williamson Crossing, Valvoline, or as stated on the agenda, or are we doing Second Amendment to Williamson Crossing PD? It's on the packet. It says it doesn't match the agenda, item 4B.
I see what you're saying.
So what are you motioning for? Or what's it?
This will be the Second Amendment to the Williamson Crossing PD agreement.
Okay,
And the Valvoline is there because it's to accommodate the Valvoline oil change facility. But it is the Second Amendment to the Williamson Crossing PD.
okay, so the motion would be for the Williamson Crossing PD.
Correct.
Right,
Not
get
Val-
Valvoline for the purposes of the motion, please.
Okay.
But it's a good question.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll do this one, I guess.
Please.
I hereby move that we approve the Plan Development General PD-G Amendment DEV 2024-772, Second Amendment to Williamson Crossing PD.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Passed unanimously. Moving on to item 4C. Madam Secretary, please.
Certainly. Item 4C, ERAU Research Park West, CAT 2, Building Site Plan DEV 2024-706, quasi-judicial hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. Hear from staff. Emilio, hi.
Emilio O'Brien, city planner. So this is a request by Parker Mynchenberg, Parker Mynchenberg and Associates on behalf of Embry-Riddle to construct a one-story, 34,740 square foot Center for Aerospace Technology building. In this presentation, it'll be referred to as the CAT 2 building, and including associated site improvements. This is the site location. It is west of Clyde Morris Boulevard, between Aviation Center Parkway and Bellevue Avenue Extension, generally east of the Daytona Beach International Airport. The future land use is general industrial. The zoning is PDG. This is an aerial of the current conditions. It is research park and partially vacant. So the yellow area depicted is the site for the Cat 2 building. So a little bit of history about the project. In 2014, the Air U Research Park West PD was approved. In 2018, the site plan to construct the Microplex building, wind tunnel and hangar was approved. In 2022, the site plan to construct the CC and Hyatt Brown Center for Aerospace Technology, or Cat 1 building, and a hangar was also approved. And recently, the applicant concurrently was requesting the First Amendment to the Air U Research Park West PD to revise the development plan, modify lot criteria, and add special provisions. So the First Amendment to the Air U Research Park West PD will impact the Cat 2 development in the following ways. The first way is remove the 200,000 square foot development cap, which would enable the development of this Cat 2 building and future facilities. Also, it would allow the use of the future parking area south of Bellevue Avenue, west of Clive Morris Boulevard, and the existing Gemini lot east of Clive Morris Boulevard to meet on-site parking requirements. It would also modify landscape standards due to proximity to the Daytona Beach International Airport. Also provide general locations for signage, which will be reviewed for compliance upon application for sign permits. The PD amendment was recently approved at the March 27, 2025 Planning Board meeting. The Cat 2 site plan approval letter will not be issued until the PD amendment is approved by the City Commission. The second reading is tentatively scheduled for May 7th, 2025. So this table here breaks down the parking, or this is the building, excuse me, the buildings on site currently. The existing buildings have a cumulative area of 186,505 square feet, and the proposed building is 34,740 square feet, which would bring the total to 221,245 square feet. This table here is in regards to the parking. So the total parking required is 245 spaces. They are proposing 245 spaces, which will be met with on-site parking on the Embry-Riddle Research Park West side, and then also on the east side, the Gemini lot and the parking to the south, the future parking to the south would also provide supplemental parking off-site. So this is the proposed site plan for the Cat 2 building. This is the proposed landscape plan. These are some exterior elevations of the Cat 2 building. Also some renderings of the Cat 2 building. This is the east facade view. Another east facade view. This is the view from Clive Morris Boulevard. And this is the west facade view. Staff finds that the proposed site plan meets the criteria outlined in section 3.4I5, site plan review standards of the Land Development Code. Therefore, staff recommends that the planning board approve the Embry-Riddle Research Park West Cat 2 building major site plan, subject to the condition that the First Amendment to Embry-Riddle Research Park West Planned District Agreement is approved by the City Commission with second reading tentatively scheduled for May 7th, 2025. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required to approve the site plan.
Very good. Thanks, Emilio. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Parker, come on back up here. Tell us all about this. Boy, Embry-Riddle's doing some good stuff, aren't they?
Yes,
For the
they
record,
are.
Parker Mynchenberg, 1729 Ridgewood Avenue. I'm always humbled, and I mentioned that at the PD modification. It's a pleasure doing Embry-Riddle's work. Another beautiful building is going to house some of the Boeing employees. As was mentioned, we've got an existing parking lot on the east side of Clyde Morris that will make up some of the required parking. And then with the PD I had before you guys last meeting, we're bringing in a couple more parcels, and there will be a Cat 3 and a parking lot south of Bellevue Extension that'll support that. So exciting project.
Good stuff. I have a question for you. Is beyond this, do we have any more room to develop in that area? And
Yes and no. I mean, they have, you know, on the east side of Clyde Morris, they've got ball fields and things like that. But as far as some
buildings?
vacant sites, I will be before you guys in a month or two. Kind of next to the airport on the west side, they have a dorm and garage project that's going to be right next to the airport. Currently, there's, I want to say 220 surface parking spaces. It's going to be replaced with a 6-story structure with 897 parking spaces and 420 dorms. So that's what they're going to be doing, is taking surface parking lots, building parking garages. They did a parking garage about a year ago. I think it was 600 spots. So that's how they're going to be able to have more students on their current campus.
well, the reason, Parker, I'm asking is because, and with this item, we're removing the 200,000 square foot development cap, but we're not setting another number. So I'm trying to get just kind of an idea of where we might be tapped out as far as building in that area is
If you
concerned.
saw the PD that you guys looked at, and of course you're not as intimate with it as I am, that showed all the buildings that'll be built in Research Park West. So there's this approximate 35,000 square foot Cat 2, and then there's a Cat 3 building proposed. It's closer to 80,000 square feet. And if you're familiar with the C.C. Hyatt Brown building that just got completed, it's kind of the flip of that building, very similar. And that'll be it for Research Park West.
Okay, so we're probably talking somewhere in the 320 range at the end of the day. Okay, I'm just trying to get my head on what the
Yeah,
the
that
top
that
number's going to be.
200,000 square foot was set at the very beginning. So they've got some higher story buildings. And that's basically why.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please,
Mr.
Mr.
Parker,
Robinson.
being so close to the airport, how high is high?
Well,
Before the FAA says,
there is such a thing as being too
Now,
high.
that's a question. How high is
So
high?
what ends up happening is they have, the airport has a contour map, and depending how close you are to the runway, depends on how high you can get. So if you're a little bit to the north of the runway, like this dorm that I mentioned, it can be 6 stories. This Cat 2 is a single story, and then Cat 3 is 3 stories. But we have to get FAA approval of the height. And if you get close to the ceiling, they have you put lights on the top of it. But if you penetrate it, they don't let you build that high. So we're restricted by FAA.
now, how does that impact if the airport wanted to expand? Do they have any room? to
Actually,
expand?
some of the property that Embry-Riddle occupies, they lease from the airport.
Right.
So, you know, some of the buildings that exist at Embry-Riddle are on leased property. So they've sort of worked all that out. They're not going to be expanding into Embry-Riddle's property, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
What about the contaminated lot over there? I mean, is there any remediation or anything on that that's going to be required?
What happened with that lot is there was the old DOT building that's also on the east side, a little bit south of the Gemini lot. Embry-Riddle acquired that, and then they had us design a parking lot that really didn't have any use other than overflow parking. So that lot's existing, and that's making up for the on-site parking that we're missing. And then we're getting a parcel from the city of Daytona south of the Bellevue Extension.
Yes.
That's going to be 171 parking spaces. So those satellite parking lots are going to serve this development.
But there's still no remediation on the contaminated areas in there?
I'm sorry on that, Ramit.
The remediation, you know, for the contaminants or.
Okay, yes, both Cat 3 and the parking lot are in a brownfield area.
Yes.
So we've been working with a consultant, and basically when you see the construction plans, we're in about 3 foot of fill. The parking lot is the best thing you can do for contamination of this type because it seals it. And one of the reasons that we're getting the waivers for the palm trees is we don't want to put deep oak tree roots down into the ground. So we have a program with DEP to build a building and build that parking lot. So
Because with most contaminated areas, you have to worry about a flume coming out from the contaminants. And so I'm surprised that they don't make you put some kind of barrier deep down or a remediation from it.
Yeah, the city, the city, until recently, the city owned this
Correct.
property, the southwest and northwest
Yes.
corner. We've been working with DEP for 25 years on remediation, and now we're working on it in cooperation with Embry-Riddle. And DEP is going to let us have a functional closure where we voluntarily agree to limit the use of those properties instead of completely encapsulating them. And that corresponds to some changes in federal law that made things more flexible.
it's basically we're doing fill, plus we're doing perforated pipe stormwater instead of a wet detention pond. So we're playing by the rules they set up for us.
Usually they might have a, clay barrier if there's any movement or containment area that,
I think a lot of this plume goes way, way, way to the east of these sites, so it's not like isolated on these sites. So the way to be able to develop it is what we're doing by the parking lot, for example. It's in 3 foot of fill, even though it doesn't need to be in fill for drainage reasons. It's because of that brownfield.
because usually they'll make you put observation wells, where they can come and sample the water points.
I've been on a few projects that were like that.
Anything else for Parker? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. All right, we do not have any speakers for this item, so I would ask for a motion on item 4C, please.
Let me see, research Park West dash Cat 2 building site plan DEV 2024-706.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Moving smartly to item 4D. Madam Secretary, please.
Fourth Amendment to O'Connor Capital Planned Development General, PDG, DEV 2024-676, quasi-judicial hearing.
Thank you. And Lee, you're back. Aye.
So good evening, Dana Lee Pettick again. This item is a request to amend the O'Connor Capital Plan Development to add single-family residential uses and to revise the development criteria accordingly. So the property is located north of Gateway North Drive, which is where the Buc-ee's and the Floor & Decor are, and east of Interstate 95. The future land use of the property is mixed use, and the zoning is the O'Connor Capital PD. And this is the aerial, which shows that the portion that this PD amendment applies to is currently vacant. So the property was originally rezoned to planned development in 2019 for a mixed-use development with commercial, residential, and industrial uses. In 2020, an amendment was approved which separated out a portion of the PD into the cottages development area and general mixed-use development area, which you can see here. And a portion of the PD is constructed, so the cottages are done and the Encompass Health property are both done. So the current amendment, like I said, is just for the remaining vacant portion of the PD, which is labeled here on this plan as the general mixed-use development area. So there are several changes to the PD which are proposed to accommodate a future single-family residential subdivision, which the original PD did not contemplate. So these modifications are shown here and they are detailed in the staff report, but like I said, they're mostly to accommodate a single-family residential subdivision. They're not really substantial changes to any existing provisions in the PD. So they are asking to add permitted uses, and they would like to add single-family detached dwelling, duplex, and zero lot line subdivision, because the existing permitted uses in the PD are limited to multifamily and then townhomes. So the amendment does also include an update to the land use conversion matrix to add the new residential uses. which is already part of the PD, the matrices. So this is just the updated one to add in those single-family uses. So there is a request for one waiver for the property to modify the single-family residential lot standards for setbacks, lot width, lot area, and building coverage. The proposed modifications are shown here. However, the Land Development Code requires plan developments to establish the minimum lot standards in the PD, so a waiver is not strictly necessary. With that, staff recommends the planning board forward the Fourth Amendment to the O'Connor Capital Plan Development Agreement to the City Commission with the recommendation of approval. A majority vote by the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And this item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by City Commission for first reading June 4th and second reading June 18th. Thank you.
Very good. Question for you. The essence of what we're talking about here is for the applicant to have flexibility to respond to changing market conditions. So would that be fair?
Yeah, that's right. Because right now, like I said, they're limited in the type of residential uses they can do and also commercial, which they already had permitted. So this allows them to add single-family subdivisions were they to get an end user that would do a single-family residential subdivision. Like I said, they had two parts of it which are completed. So they have Encompass Health, which is medical, and then the cottages. So this is just letting them have more flexibility for the remainder of the PD.
Very good, thank you. Anything else for staff? Mr. Robinson?
It's an easy question. The zero lot line. Why are we approving zero lot lines? Or why are you
Yeah, so
recommending?
zero lot line does not mean that every house is like right up against each other. It just allows them to shift it over in order to do like duplexes. Duplexes. So they don't have to have every single lot completely separated. It just allows them flexibility in the subdivision design to allow a zero lot line subdivision, but they do still have setback requirements. It's not,
Okay.
every setback is not zero.
Oh, okay.
It's
So-
one, I believe.
So the possibility exists that right next to a detached home, they could put up a townhome? or
No,
duplex?
it would be the entire subdivision would be
Oh, okay.
designed like this.
Okay,
It wouldn't be that you have a single family lot that can meet this criteria and then you have a zero lot line that is right up against it. It would be the other way.
okay. Thank you.
Anything else for staff? Thank you.
Welcome.
On to the applicant, sir.
Quicker than Parker.
I tell you.
Rob Merrill for the
Normally we-
record, 1 Daytona Boulevard. And Parker's here with me, as is Jessica. We started this one back in 2019. There've been a few adjustments along the way. This is a pretty minor one. I think good job, Dan Lee. This is really something the market comes along and does something different. So hopefully she answered your questions, Middleton, and we're here to answer any questions you guys have. I would say, while I have the mic, because I think it's my only chance, you were talking about the Tanger project that we brought last month. As a result of your comments, we have significantly reduced the number of days for those events. I know it doesn't have to do with this, but I think by like 75%.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
just want
great.
you to know that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
So we did a good thing.
you sure did.
He did a good thing. Anything for Rob before he runs off? Nope, doesn't look like it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. No speakers for this item, so we'll move right into asking for a motion on item 4D, please.
I make a motion, we approve item number 4D.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob.
Good to see you, Rob. Thank you. Moving forward to item 4E. Madam Secretary, please.
Certainly.
Secretary.
The amendment to Daytona Auto Mall Plan Development, PD, DEV 2024-765, quasi-judicial hearing.
Very good. Back again.
Yeah, good evening, Dana Lee
evening.
Pettick again. I also have the next item, so you'll see me again. So this item is a request to amend the Daytona Auto Mall Planned Commercial Development to revise the development criteria for a future furniture or appliance store. So the property is located southwest of LPGA Boulevard, Interstate 95. The future land use is interchange commercial. and the zoning is the Daytona Auto Mall PD. And these lots that are part of this PD amendment are currently vacant, as shown here. So the property was originally rezoned to the Daytona Auto Mall in 1998 for tourist-oriented uses and vehicle sales and service. There have been several amendments over the years, the most recent of which was in 2014, the 6th Amendment, which modified signage. So the current request for the 7th Amendment will be limited to lots 3, 4, and 5 of the Daytona Auto Mall subdivision to revise the development criteria and incorporate the requested waivers for a furniture or appliance store development. The modifications include revisions to landscape, signage, parking, and building height development criteria. So this is the proposed PD plan, which shows the future furniture store development. And like I said, the changes to the PD are the result of the waivers to the land development code that the applicant has requested. So first, the PD proposes to increase the maximum building height allowed on these particular lots to 60 feet. The existing PD limits these lots to 35 feet. However, it also allows other lots within the PD to go up to 70 feet. So this is well within that range. The applicant has also requested to reduce the required width of the scenic thoroughfare overlay buffers from 50 feet to 35 feet while still maintaining the same landscape materials as if it were a 50-foot buffer. So the property is required to provide a 50-foot scenic thoroughfare overlay buffer on both Tomoka Farms Road, which you can see here, and Interstate 95. So that would be limiting if they had to do a 50-foot buffer on both sides, which is why they're requesting this reduction to 35 feet. The applicant has also requested a reduction to the required parking from 3.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area to 1 space per 1,000 square feet of floor area for a furniture or appliance store. And the applicant has also provided a parking study to justify this reduction. And finally, the applicant has requested a waiver to increase the quantity and total copy area of the wall signs allowed on the building from 6 signs and 1,200 square feet to 14 signs and 2,803 square feet. And part of this is also incorporating a specific sign plan, which you can see here, which shows all of the signage they are proposing on the walls of the building. And this is the other one. So with that, staff recommends the planning board forward the 7th Amendment to the Daytona Auto Mall Planned Commercial Development Agreement to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval. A majority vote by the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval. And the item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by City Commission for first reading June 4th and second reading June 18th.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you very much. Hi, Jessica.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Jessica Gow, Cobb Cole Law Firm, 1 Daytona Boulevard, Daytona Beach, Florida. I let Rob have one tonight, but I'll take the next two. I'm going to age myself in 2 ways. One, because when Joey and staff went over the Waypointe PD, I was like, yeah, that got approved in like 2023, 2019. The time is slipping by. But also because I was 4 when this PD was originally adopted. So, it's balance.
We won't do that.
Yeah, I would say
just
okay.
Continue.
Yep. So I think Danielle hit this kind of on the head, but I just want to go through the modifications really quick. Looking at a furniture store here, I think that it's a weird shaped, right now it's 3 lots. You've got that double 50-foot buffer. I think that's why we haven't seen anything come forward here. That modification to 35 feet really intensifies the planting so that you've got more of an opaque buffer. We did the same thing on Encompass, and if you look out there, it looks great. So keeping that planting standard, but allowing more room on the site for improvements like parking. The parking ratio, I think we've seen that furniture store is unique. It's not the typical retail user that you see for that 3.5 per thousand. So we did the alternative parking study. That supported a lower rate. In working with staff, they said, let's put a little cushion factor in for support. So let's be at that 0.9 minimum. So that's what you see in the PD. And then the wall signage, I want to note that, one, we see this kind of signage on the furniture stores in Tomoka Town Center across the street in Tanger. You can see the scale here. All of the window treatment signs are just the bare B, which is a stylized kind of figure. Looks like a window treatment almost on their other stores that you can see online. And because of this site's location, it could have, under the Land Development Code, a pole sign up to 80 feet, right, 720 square feet wide, or square feet in sign area. We're not doing any type of pole sign here, but because of the location on Tomoka Farms and the interstate, we're asking for an increase in wall signage because the building will serve as a sign instead of having that large kind of garish pole sign that the Land Development Code could provide. I think those are the points I wanted to hit, and I'm here for questions.
Okay, a couple of things, Jessica, if I could. Do we know, is this Bear Furniture, is that a done deal? Is that who's going in
It's the
there?
user,
That's a
yep.
done deal, and T's have been crossed, I's dotted?
Well, I will say I don't know that
Okay, I'm just
in terms
asking.
of transaction, but they are preparing a site plan package with Kimley Horn, who's here to answer questions, and that's who we're representing, is Bear.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, very good. And you mentioned about the signage. I mean, that is not anything, a departure from any of the, like the Rooms to Go and those types of brands have very similar sign
They
configurations
have quite a bit
to what
more.
we're talking
This
about.
is scaled back.
Yeah, when
below
you see
that one.
2,800 square feet, it's like, but it's understandable given the use that we're talking about and where it's going to be situated in that particular plot, so, at least in my opinion. Anything else for the applicant? Mr. Robinson?
Miss Jessica, that's a lot of signs. That's a lot of signs.
Big building.
I understand that, but it's almost like overkill.
So it's two different facades. So if you chop it up, take Rooms to Go or City Furniture or whatever else has gone on out there. Rooms to Go, I know, had about 4,000 and something that came through and got approved. There's another furniture store out there, I'm not going to say names, especially after what I've said after this, which is that they got permitted twice the Land Development Code kind of overall. And so when you look at the layout of a furniture store, these pictures are fantastic. Like I just said, because of its location on the interstate, it could have a 720 square foot pole sign for the site. Instead, you're looking at a sign that is on the facade of the building in pretty close scale. The square is a maximum. It's going to be kind of stylized letters. So it's not going to be that big. That's just the placement option. And it's really in scale with the other furniture stores. And when you look at the facade of the building itself here, it is not an overwhelming presence on the building.
But given the furniture store Bear, I mean, they're kind of like a little bit of upscale, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And all these signs along the window, from my perspective, kind of cheapens it. It makes it look like
So if you know the brand, which it sounds like you do, this is prototypical on their new stores. So you see that stylized window treatment with just the Bear B as the standpoint.
I just think they have too many those little signs. I don't think it would take away from the attractiveness of the building, and also the, regardless of what Rooms to Go or the other furniture company does, if they reduce the signs, I think they would be more attractive than the other ones.
So the other thing that you can't see on that rendering that you can see when you look up kind of their new prototypical stores is where that B is. Those are usually a pop of color. I like the ones that have a little beachy feel that are a teal color. And so the underlying square is more of a facade treatment, right, where you've got that pop of a bright color, and then you have that B. So it's really also intended to create movement in the building and give it some diversity there.
And obviously, the Bear marketing folks see it in maybe a different direction that some might as far as, particularly if this is their standard approach that they take. And then they may look at different colors based on area of the country. I wouldn't know that, but I think at least, as you mentioned, Jessica, the overall size compared to other similar furniture stores in the area, it's not out of place, it would appear. Any other questions for
Yes,
Jessica?
I have.
Please, yes, sir.
Well, it's more a comment.
Please, comment away.
Over the years, we've allowed a lot of different signage, larger signage and everything, next to 95 and I-4 and every other place. Mm-hmm. But, I don't think that there's any standard requirement that they met. I think all of the parking, I've got a big deal about parking. I understand the parking there. You don't need a a lot per square foot. But I think the city is, I think we're kind of getting away from the standards. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I think that the city is, they need to set a standard for a long interstate highway, what size sign you have, and not keep it getting varying signs for whatever the store is. And I think that the planning and the city itself should look into that and put a standard and not allowing the variances. Everybody coming in, I want a bigger sign, I want a taller sign, and I want 14 signs instead of 1. And I think that that's something that the city should look at. I don't mind the building, I mind the signage.
Yeah, so I will say, I love the idea because I think that code standard for wall signage is based on frontage a little bit, but generally allows you to have 200 square feet. And that's not what we're seeing these days.
Because it just comes up and down. One building's got this, and then you go a block and another building has that, and then you go a mile down the road and another one, it's signed. The signs, there's nothing equal.
I agree. The challenge you get into, sometimes signage may be a function of use, where you have a furniture store and you're trying to attract attention to that location, as opposed to an administrative building that people are there working, and there's no reason to put signs of that proportion up. So I understand what you're saying,
But
Bernie,
everybody
and it makes
wants
sense.
to bring more attention to their store, no matter what.
If indeed it's a store, you're
Or
right.
whatever it is.
And I think you do also look at the type of sign. So normally, right, you'd also have a monument sign along the interstate or a pole sign like we talked about. You can have multiple monument signs throughout. That's not proposed here. And it's a balance, like Chairman McLean said. For furniture stores specifically, you see kind of the outdoor notation, kind of the directional signage on the building to say these are the different areas of the store that we're seeing. So I do think it's a unique use, but I like the idea of an update, because we do see these requests a lot, because I think especially in the interstate corridors, what the users are looking for to have a marketable site might not match up with the former land development code standard.
I understand what you're saying. You work for the customer.
It's almost like it's a sign competition. Let's see who can build a bigger sign, and every time someone comes in, they want a bigger sign, more copy room or more copy space, a bigger logo, and it kind of takes away from the conformity or from the standard on the aesthetic that we're looking for within the city itself. You got big here, then you got bigger here, bigger. Like I say.
Well, using the example that Jessica just mentioned, the rooms to go is over 4,000. This is 2,800. So it's not necessarily each and every time up. There are exceptions, and based on that particular case, and I would think we want to look at it on an individual case basis and see what makes sense in that particular situation. So, anything else for Jessica?
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any speakers for this item, so if I could ask for a motion for item 4E, please.
I move that we approve the Planned Development General PDG Amendment, DEV 2024-765, the 7th Amendment to the Daytona Automall PCD.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Thank you very much. Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 4F. Madam Secretary, please.
Sir.
Last item. Don't get excited.
Item 4F, 518 Fentress Boulevard, Place of Worship Special Use Permit, DEV 2025-081, quasi-judicial hearing.
Thank you very much. One last time with feeling.
One last time. So good evening.
Good evening.
Pettick, Senior Planner. This item is a request for a special use permit to allow a place of worship in an existing industrial development on 5.44 acres of property zoned industrial park or M4. So the property is located at 518 Fentress Boulevard. The future land use on the property is general industry, and the current zoning is industrial park or M4. So this is the aerial of the property, which shows the existing development. So the applicant proposes to locate a church within an existing developed industrial park. The church would be limited in operations and will occupy one unit and will utilize the existing parking spaces to accommodate the use. No modifications to the existing site or building are proposed with this special use permit. So a special use permit is required to allow a place of worship use as a permitted use in the industrial park zoning on this property. So the special use permit, if granted, would then allow the use of the property as a church. So this is the survey of the existing site, which, like I said, will not be changed as a result of this special use permit request. So special use permits are subject to the review standards in the Land Development Code. And staff finds the requested special use permit meets the review standards as there will be no modifications to the existing site and the scale and operations of the place of worship use will be limited. So therefore, staff recommends the planning board for the special use permit to allow place of worship as a permitted use in an existing industrial development on 5.44 acres of property zone industrial park to the City Commission with a recommendation approval. And this item is tentatively scheduled to be heard by the City Commission for final consideration on May 21st. Thank you.
Very good. Just a comment, I guess, is that we obviously need to make this happen. We need the special permit to do it. We're going to put it in with no changes, just stick it in, there you go, no changes, no conditions, anything like that. And my understanding is also that the church will be able to use the entire parking lot on the weekends, particularly on for Sunday services, I would think.
Yeah, per the applicant, which is Jessica, the lease agreement says that they can use all the parking areas on Sunday, and then they have like the parking assigned for their unit during the week. So they won't be doing anything to the parking area.
Okay, very good. And anything else for staff? Mr. Robinson? Okay.
The taxes, when you put this place of worship in that industrial area, how does it affect the tax base for the city? I mean, will they still be able to, could it become tax exempt?
A nonprofit church is likely to be tax exempt.
Right. So how does that?
The property?
Yeah. If they're leasing the property, then it's a commercial property and it would not be tax exempt.
Okay. Okay.
Good question.
Well, does this open the door for other place of worship to go into these industrial areas and affect our taxes? Tax rate. Like the one on, there's some streets where, there's like 12 or 14 churches, and so the ability to improve that area is affected by the lack of property taxes coming in. So if we start putting these special these places of worship inside these industrial bases area, how will that affect the tax for the city?
I believe this is why they kept it as a special use permit in these types of zoning districts, so that way each one has to come forward and be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So if you notice that there's a lot coming in an industrial area, then you can address it then. But it is a special use permit.
Yeah, again, they can say me too, but we can say
no.
Not so much.
But they would have an argument to say, hey, you permitted this one, why can't you permit us too?
And given what the circumstances might be for that particular case, we might say you're right. But there may be also circumstances that make that a distinct and different circumstance than what we had approved in the past. And because of those differences, we can deny if we so choose to as a board. So.
And we couldn't speculate on what may or may not happen, what people may ask for in the industrial areas. So.
Yeah, and I don't know how many churches are going to voluntarily go into an industrial area anyway. Yeah. It just seems to me that wouldn't be my first choice.
I mean, quite honestly, whether the property's tax really isn't relevant under the criteria that should be applied for this kind of application. And in general, when you're engaged in zoning review, you look at the use of the property and its offsite impacts, and not whether it's taxed. I think if the city were to deny this specifically for the reason that the property wouldn't be taxed, it would be an unlawful decision, and it could subject the city to litigation brought on the basis of we're discriminating against the practice of religion, which is prohibited by federal and state law.
Yes.
So, I mean, I understand your point.
Yeah, I'm just
and
looking at
it's
the
a concern
impact
for the city,
of the
but-
tax.
It's just not an impact that
Okay.
that the special use criteria are relate to in the
Yeah,
land development code.
And it appears it's an impact we can't do anything about anyway, so it's
At least
a
not in
moot
the
point.
special use process.
Gotcha,
Okay.
gotcha.
And this particular request does not have any impacts because it's an existing site and they're making no changes.
Okay.
There's just
there you
a
go.
new tenant moving in.
Very good. Anything else for staff? Thank you. Enjoy your evening. Jessica, come on up and, not quite yet, huh?
Again, for the record, Jessica Gow, Cobb Cole Law Firm, 1 Daytona Boulevard, Daytona Beach. This one is, again, I agree, simple. This industrial park, if you haven't seen it, take a look at, it's not roll-up doors, right? It's actually very nicely situated off of Fentress.
I'll take your word for
They've
it.
got nice blue doors. It just looks like really an office park. And so the Church First United is currently operating out of a nearby site. They've outgrown it. Good problem to have for a church. And so they're looking for additional space for their member. This request, like Danielle noted, has no changes to the overall site. It is a lease, not a purchase of any property, as it relates to the question that arose. And they're really excited to keep spreading the word.
That's great. Any questions for Jessica? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
No speakers on this one, guys, so let's ask for a motion on item 4F, please.
I move that we approve agenda item 4F, special use permit DEV 2025-081, place of worship -518 Fentress Boulevard.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good, thank you. Moving on to item number 5, other business. Do we have a report from the Downtown Redevelopment Board?
I was out of state and I didn't get anything.
Okay. And the answer in this case is no. How about Midtown Redevelopment, please?
I was ill and did not attend the meeting.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
About Beachside Redevelopment? No one? Maybe that's Tony's? Okay. Moving on to affordable housing. Their meeting was on the 16th. I couldn't attend. I'm awaiting the minutes from that meeting. When I get them, hopefully I'll have them for our next meeting, and I will get them to all of you. Moving on to public comments. Anyone from the public want to speak on any item outside of the agenda items? Seeing none. Moving on to staff comments.
Have a great evening, everybody.
I like that. And anything on any board members? With that,
All right.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your dedication to your city.